Trigger warning. I'm about to talk about something really disgusting. Our dog pooping all over the dining room rug. Consider yourselves warned. So last Sunday, after a long day of beautiful church here, after still being quite jet-lagged from our vacation, I discovered that our sweet dog Miles had had a misadventure. He left a world of poop across the dining room rug, and Grant was not home. So, having no latex gloves in sight, just me, just bare hands, and a terrible mess, I scrubbed until every smudge was gone, all the while feeling that visceral sense of revulsion and disgust. And now the really disgusting story. I was praying and had a vision of something like a big sheet being let down from heaven by its four corners. I looked carefully into it and saw four-footed animals of the earth, wild beasts, reptiles, and birds of the air. And then I heard a voice that said to me, "Now, Peter, kill and eat." But I answered, "Certainly not, Lord. Nothing profane or unclean has ever crossed my lips." My visceral revulsion cleaning up dog poop is not so different from Peter's revulsion in the vision God gives him. And it's not so different from the ways that some people react to God's radical welcome. I mean, take it from me, some people find our practice here to be disgusting. When we proclaim the radical welcome of the risen Christ, the barrier between death and life has been torn open, and there's no one outside the embrace of God's love, that disgusts some people. We say it with our bodies, with our song and dance in church, and most significantly, with the invitation we give at the Eucharist. I mean, Peter had seen all kinds of things in his years with Jesus. He'd seen the dead raised and the demon-possessed freed. He had seen loaves multiply and storms stilled. He had seen the face of his friend shine like lightning on the mountaintop. He had seen Jesus alive after he had seen him executed. But today he sees something that's hard to accept. In his vision, Peter recoils, his eyes squeezed shut, his stomach churning, as the sheet drips with creatures his tradition calls unclean. As a proper son of Israel, Peter refuses. I mean, he knows the scriptures. He knows what's clean and what's unclean. He knows what's acceptable and what's disgusting. That persistent voice of God unmakes his belief. What God has made clean, you must not call profane. Our friend James Allison calls this moment a heavenly counter-history, a subversion from within of a story we've all heard our whole lives. Because the world runs on categories of disgust. We're taught from birth who to avoid, who to fear, who to feel superior to. The dirty, the unwell, the poor, the MAGA bros, the queers, the conservatives, the addicts, the immigrants, the felons, the ones we whisper about, and the ones we pretend not to see. Peter's vision reveals that disgust is simply not a part of God's story. This is not the world that heaven imagines. The heavenly imagination, the Easter imagination, begins when we learn to call no one profane or impure. I mean, not just to include them with a kind of strained tolerance, not just to pity them, but to learn to disbelieve in their repugnancy and to help them to disbelieve in it too. And I know for me, maybe for most of us, when we're honest, we still carry around our private sheet full of unclean animals. The people who disturb us, the ones we avoid, the ones we fear or look down on or just don't want to have to deal with, like the guy I saw across the street before the service started who was kind of yelling at himself, so I snuck back inside. In the same way we might avoid cleaning up dog poop, we avoid people we believe are unclean. And that's simply because disgust is such a powerful psychological force. We use disgust to protect ourselves, to keep danger at bay. But more often it becomes a barricade, one that isolates and hardens and dehumanizes. And sometimes we don't just feel it towards others, sometimes we feel it towards ourselves. So, James asks us, who are for me the repugnant beasts? Or for whom am I a repugnant beast? The Easter season asks us to stare that question in the face and to answer it not with guilt or shame, but with resurrection. Because if resurrection means anything, it means the destruction of those old categories. It means that the barricades between us and them come down. It means that the table gets longer and the sheet gets wider until everyone fits. It means that the Spirit of Christ is moving ahead of all the churches, dragging us along behind, if necessary, toward people and places we never expected could show us God. If we are to live in the story that God is telling, then we must begin to name the barricades and knock them down. Because what Peter discovered, what the church is slowly and haltingly beginning to understand, is that Jesus is not content to rise alone. He means to gather the whole world with him. He is risen for the repugnant beasts. He is risen for our enemies. He is risen for those on the margins. He is risen for you. So we must unlearn disgust. We must stop calling people profane or impure, not just with our lips, but in our hearts. We must welcome those who frighten us or unsettle us, not out of tolerance, but because that's where we will find God. Remember, Peter didn't want to go to Cornelius' house. He didn't want to eat Gentile food or stay with Gentile people. But he went because the Spirit said, go. And what he discovered there is what we're meant to discover too, that God is already with them. God is already there. God is already in the house. And there's another vision. It's from the other reading for this morning, from Revelation 21. John sees a new heaven and a new earth coming down, just like Peter's vision of that sheet coming down. And like Peter, John hears a voice saying, look, here God lives among mortals. He will make his home among them, and they will be his people, and he will be their God. John sees the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven. Coming down out of heaven from God. Not we ascending into some distant realm, but heaven itself descending to where it meets us in this world. And this is the climax of God's counter-history. The Creator comes into the very world that we thought profane to make all things new, to wipe away every tear, to end death, mourning, crying, and pain. Heaven is only found as it comes to us here on earth. And that's the gospel. Heaven doesn't hover above our fears and our boundaries, waiting for us to clean ourselves up. It falls upon us like a rainstorm. It rushes towards us in love and mercy, in the breaking of bread and the pouring out of the Spirit, in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And this is what we're doing every time that we gather here. When we say that everyone is welcome to receive communion, we're simply repeating what Peter learned in his vision, and what John saw in his revelation, that God's love doesn't stop at our barricades, our borders, our categories, or our sense of who is spiritually correct. We do this because Jesus is alive. The risen Jesus is forever breaking through locked doors and walking through walls and yanking sheets full of old divisions right off the table. And yet it's so easy to fall back into the old story, to believe in the power of disgust over the power of love. I mean, to look at the shit-smeared carpet and think that's all we deserve. To feel like our failures have made us unclean. To believe the bad news that others may have said about us, that we are impure and unworthy and outside. But what God has called clean, we must not call profane. That's not just a message about them, that's a message about us. You are not disgusting. You're not too far gone. You're not outside of God's mercy. You are, in fact, exactly the person that the Spirit loves to surprise. So today we step into God's heavenly counter-history. We say no to the story of disgust. We say yes to the grammar of grace. We say amen to a vision of heaven coming down to earth, becoming our very flesh and bones here and now. Because what God has made clean, you must not call profane.